Welcome to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski, and do we have a wonderful show for you today. I think we're really going to open your eyes up. I know it's opened my eyes up tremendously. Actually creates a little situation for me that I'm worried about it, so we've got to do something about it here. But you know, we live in a toxic environment. There's no question about it. Our air is toxic. The water we drink is toxic. The clothes we wear are. The food we eat are. The medications we take. And I think even some of the supplements that I talk about may even be toxic. But we're going to talk today about how to detoxify yourself from something that we really don't think about. And that's all these radio waves and cell phone waves and the such that we're so addicted to today. I'm a victim of it as well. We're going to talk about what those things do to us and actually how we can resolve the problem. And we have our special guest today, Dr. Charmaine Bassett-Trimm. Dr. Charmaine, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Dr. Charmaine practices in Toledo, Ohio. And it was a long trip for her, but that she made it in
record time.
And she was actually on Healthy Pets, Healthy People a couple weeks ago, and the phone calls we received were incredible. People are worried, I think, a little bit, and you're doing major work in educating people on the harm that all of this radio waves and these magnetic fields are causing on our human body and our animals' bodies. So, Dr. Charmaine, let's start off with talking about what is an electromagnetic field.
Well, that's a pretty broad range. What's really crazy to me is if you take the whole entire frequency range on the planet, let's take it from 0.01 all the way up to now we're into the hundreds of thousands of gigahertz and millihertz. And I mean, every single frequency band on the planet has been bought or is being used. There's no available bands left on the planet, and they're all saturated to the hilt.
So what is the source of all of this?
Well, it can be, I like to look at it as three different approaches or three different frequency ranges that we want to look at. We want to look at the extremely low frequencies. They're called ELFs. We want to take a look at radio frequencies, which are going to be what broadcast, and even though they're not the most dangerous, they're the ones that are constantly bombarding us. We need to take a look at magnetic fields. And then, of course, we need to take a look at electric fields. And then under electrical fields, we have dirty electricity. So you actually have the electricity that we're using in our houses, and then we have the dirty field that the appliances, miswiring, all kinds of too many things on one circuit. I mean, it's amazing if you just take a meter around your house. I mean, they knew from the invent of electricity, going back to Tesla and Edison days. You know, they were debating, do we do 20 hertz? Do we do 30 hertz? Do we do 60 hertz? And you know, they settled on 60 hertz, knowing that for the human physiology, you know, we want to be 30 or under.
But they progress with all of this anyway. So when we talk about these electrical fields, every appliance in our house produces some kind of electric field. Our toaster, our coffee maker, our blenders, everything.
Yes.
What about the lights in our house?
That's a big problem. In fact, a lot of the lights actually throw off the body's entire metabolism. I mean, and so you have to put it all together. So you need to put, like you said in the beginning, you know, the clinic that we opened up because I feel that when people come in to see you as a practitioner, you know, you tell them do A, B, C, and D. You need to do this to get better, but they really don't know how to. They don't know how to apply. So my dad's dream and my dream was to open a clinic that we affectionately call the Detox Depot, where we actually show people the steps that they need to do on a daily basis to knock back your toxic burden. Because the thing is toxins are passed on from mother to child. So we're looking at, since World War II, so about 80 years. So what it looks like to me is what my great-grandmother had. We're talking about all pathogens as well as toxins are passed on. So what my great-grandmother had was passed on to my grandmother, then to my mom, then to me, now my daughter, and then my daughter now has a 4-year-old, and there's one on the way. In fact, she may be having it while I'm here. So I hope not, because I want to be there for the birth. I'm like, just wait till I get home. But those are all cumulative. And as well as every type of toxin. One exacerbates the other one.
So our cells have a North Pole and a South Pole. So for them to have a North Pole and a South Pole, they have a magnetic field within each cell, correct?
Absolutely.
So these things that we see are affecting that cell on a cellular basis.
Yeah, all the way down to the mitochondria and to the telomeres, the DNA.
And that's why our telomere, well, explain what a telomere is.
Easiest explanation that someone said to me one time, and I've really hung on to, because I was like, boy, that's the best description. So you take a shoelace, which I don't have those kind on, but the wrapping at the end that holds all the laces together, that's the telomere.
And with these toxicities and these fields, those become shortened.
Shortened and frazzled, and they actually get damaged and break down. And so all toxins are going to do that. So these toxins, again, you've mentioned it in the air, in the food. So I like to break it down into 5 categories, the toxins. I like to break it down into heavy metals. You have your lead, your cadmium, your mercury. There's more, but those are the biggest ones that we're paying attention to. Then you're going to have your petrochemicals, and those are going to be also called xenobiotics or endocrine disruptors, plasticizers, solvents, fragrances. By the time the average female leaves her house, she's used over 250 deadly known cancer-causing synthetic estrogens,
and those
xenobiotics.
Those are going to affect all the hormone process in the body.
Exactly, as well as plasticize up the system. And then you have what your body is supposed to have and deal with is your metabolic waste, so from metabolic function. And then you're going to have your pathogenic burden as a result, because my philosophy is such that as your toxins accumulate in your body and you start getting symptoms, which is indicative of you've reached your body burden and now cuppeth floweth over, okay, that starts weakening the tissue integrity. Wherever your weakest organs or tissues are is where it's going to show up. And then in those weakened areas, your microbiota, or your resident population of hopefully symbiotes, can actually turn into commensals or pathobionts. And now we're looking at, I consider, a secondary effect, which are your pathogens, your viruses, your bacteria, your parasites, your funguses, molds, mycotoxins. But the topic that we were kind of focusing on today is the mysterious one, because it's just something that you don't see, you don't smell, people aren't talking about it enough, and that's the electromagnetic radiation.
And unless you're very sensitive, you're not going to feel them.
Well, but the thing is we are all feeling them. It's just that everybody is going to express that burden in a different way. Some people may express it as, I can't sleep very well. Other people may be anxiety. Somebody else, it may be depression. Somebody else, it could be heart disease. Somebody else, it could be cancer. So we are expressing it. In fact, there's a direct correlation. If you take a look at the graph of the increase of these frequencies in our life with the correlates of, let's just say, cancer, they run in tandem with each other.
So you sit there and look at that cell, and it has a north pole and a south pole, plus and a minus. And then you look at even your DNA, that spiral is really kind of an antenna.
Absolutely.
And here we are being bombarded by all of these invisible waves that we can't touch. And, 50 years ago, there was so much of it, but now there's probably 100 times more than that, or 1,000 times more than that.
1 million, 10 million.
10 million times more than that.
10 million.
And I know when you were on the radio show, I made this comment, I'm afraid to go home now, but, because my house is automated. It's Wi-Fi this, and talk to this, and turn the light on with that, and unlock the front door with that, and open the garage door. And I love all that convenience. But now, every time I'm in my house, I'm thinking, wow, all I'm being hit is with everything from that smart meter that's sitting outside the wall there to my Alexa that is on the desk where I'm sitting.
Well, yeah, let's just take a look at that. So that wireless phone that you have in the house, that's equivalent to having a cell phone tower in your back garden. It's that potent. And I tell people about the electromagnetic frequencies and they get it, but I've been talking about these frequencies since '78, and I still see people putting their head up to a cell phone, and it has been well established that 2 minutes on a cell phone with it up to your head actually starts punching holes into your brain tissue. It actually causes you leaky gut. We now have leaky brains, and it has now been predicted that the medical groups will be bankrupt within the next 10 years because of the amount of Alzheimer's and dementia that we are already expressing and seeing, as well as cancers and brain tumors.
And who's doing the studying that's showing that?
Well, there's so many groups out there, but I think my favorite group, and let me see if I can pull up, it's called the Bio Initiative, because what happened is Europe was 10 years ahead of us introducing these like the 4G, the 4G TE, And it turns out that literally 10 million part of their number of their population is on permanent disability. And so as a result, they were losing able-bodied people to help keep their country running. So they started researching why, and they come to find out that it's these radio frequencies and these the extremely low frequencies that are doing this damage.
And it wasn't an aging population. It was, they attributed right regardless of age.
Yes, exactly. And again, you have to really put, and then let's say that you're also taking, you're eating aspartame, or you're eating MSG, or you're taking Zoloft, or you're taking, Tylenol, and then you've got your heavy metals and petrochemicals that we're talking about. You have to put all those together. Those actually end up in a straight line. So they're just one's pushing the other, and is really, really adding to the problem. And they've actually labeled it, due to this bioinitiative report, they've labeled it as a 2B classification, which means possibly carcinogenic. And they've actually shown that if you use a cordless phone, that you will increase the risk of brain cancer by 470% with greater or equal to 10 years of use. They've proven that if you use a mobile phone, so your cell phone, that will increase your risk of the brain tumors by 200%. And that's, again, greater than or less than 2 years. So, I mean, the research is out there, it's undeniable. But one of the ways that it affects us too is because the body interprets these frequencies as light. So the pineal gland will actually also be affected because it will read these frequencies as light, and it'll end up damaging the body's ability to produce melatonin and use melatonin in an effective way. And the melatonin converts into the serotonin. So as the sun comes up, your melatonin should be coming down, your serotonin should be coming up, and then vice versa as the sun's going down. And that regulates all your circadian rhythms, which is your digestive cycles, your thinking cycles, really all the cycles and hormonal cycles in the body.
Right.
So we're seeing the breakdown from that. And we're also seeing an increase in the amyloid beta plaque. It was called the Bioinitiative Report, and they've actually been able to indicate, the evidence indicates that childhood leukemia in young boys doubles when they're exposed to 1.4 milligauss. And again, it's going to also interfere if you already have a disease, let's say leukemia. You're looking at, if you're exposed to levels of just 2 mgs, milligauss equal to or greater, 300% increase of risk of death from that leukemia. And if you're going to greater than 4 milligauss or higher, 450% increase of death just from being exposed to these fields.
That's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
And then, so you have these in your home, and I always talk about how we're really nothing but electricity.
We are.
And our cells function on electricity. Our thyroid is our voltage regulator, which regulates all that electricity.
That's right.
And all of a sudden now we're being bombarded no matter where we are. You mentioned at home we have this dirty energy. What exactly is this dirty energy?
Well, like you said, we are these electromagnetic beings. We absolutely are, especially the brain and the heart. In fact, I find it really interesting that you actually have brain cells in your heart, and that connection between the brain and heart is literally sends more telecommunications, more communications than the rest of your body put together. Second to the gut.
Yeah.
Yep, the enteric nervous system.
Right.
But what happens is, because we are so much water, is that does make us a huge antenna. And so that makes us black body radiators. So we're going to actually absorb all the electromagnetic radiation around us is supposed to come into our body. And then what's supposed to happen as a result of that is then you're supposed to be walking either with leather-soled shoes or barefoot on the ground or laying on the ground or having cement floors or natural dirt floors. And then that goes into the earth and that grounds out all day long. But everybody's got...
Well, it's hard to even find leather shoes, period, let alone leather-soled shoes.
Exactly.
And then...
Exactly.
You use that word grounded, and it's so important.
Critical.
So
critical.
One of the ways to help do that is to actually get in your bare feet, go put your feet in the dirt.
Yeah, in fact, there's a movie out that's called, I think, Grounded or Grounding. And what the gentleman did is he lived in Alaska, so pretty cold up there most of the year. But underneath his house, he had dirt. So he actually dug a hole in the dirt underneath his house, and he would actually bury himself. And his pain, his disease state, his symptoms all started to literally just go bye-bye.
So there's this push everywhere to go from the incandescent lights, which they made illegal, and to move over to the LED lights. What's the impact of those LED lights on us?
Well, I mean, again, every time you're just adding to, it's all cumulative, and it's all effective. And the LED, there are some LED that you can get that are full spectrum that actually emit low frequencies. In fact, I do have resources that I'm going to try to get to the people that you can put as a footnote for your show. Some companies that are putting out some that'll actually give you health benefits instead of take away, like the majority of the lights that are out there. But let's not forget also the lamp that you're plugging it into. You know, that's every bit as much of a problem as the light is. You know, the ballast or whatever it is that you're using. I mean, truly, here's the way I look at it. If we're gonna, what can we do? You know, we know it's out there. We know that we're swimming in the soup. We know that we can't escape it. We know that they're trying to turn our neighborhoods into battlegrounds with, it's a race for 5G. They're putting 17,000 satellites. The contracts are signed, sealed, and delivered out into space. So, I mean, as if what we're getting hit with isn't enough, they've got the satellites coming. They've got the towers coming. So what are you going to do at home? Don't get rid of all your stuff. Hardwire it.
Yeah, let's before we talk about some of the solutions, let's continue with this because you brought up 5Gs,
Yeah.
and there's a push for 5G.
Race.
And I've read a number of studies that show exactly what you're talking about, how damaging 5G is. But the difference with 5G is we're going to have individual little 5G towers throughout our neighborhoods, every so many feet.
Right, because it can't go through buildings, walls, trees. And the thing is they're actually, first and foremost, what they're doing is they're bringing in a 4GTE Advanced Pro. And what that is that's a beam forming. Okay, so that actually takes and concentrates the full array and beams it into your house. And this is actually, see, the 5G is only going to be when you're using the device. But let's say you're the only one using the device from the tower that's going to be in your neighborhood, you're going to get all that at once. But what precedes that is that 4GTE Advanced Pro, and that's actually, to me, just as scary, if not more. And that's what I'm already, when they started turning that on in the country, because remember, electricity is a circuit. So whatever's up line from you, you're getting hit with. So even though I keep everything hardlined in my house, I do so much research as you do. So I'm on the computer more than I want. And even though I'm hardwired, I started noticing, and I just took them off before the show because I was just so hot. But I wear magnets, opposing magnets on my wrist and on my ankles. And I wear devices to counteract that field that's hitting me, and I've noticed an increase.
Because you're getting that field from the computer screen.
Right.
You're getting that field from the TV as well.
I've never bought a TV. Yeah.
Well, the average person is getting that same.
Anytime you see a screen. And they've actually proven that if you get a kid's frontal lobes of their brain will never fully develop. They're saying that kids should never, ever get on a cell phone or never be in front of a screen till they're at least 10, 12 years old, or they will never have full brain development. Their hyperactivity, their hyperarousal, and that's just it. It stops them from becoming frontally lobe developed conscious human beings, and it keeps them back in the reactive mind, which is why we're seeing all this either aggressive or hyperactive, reactive sort of behavior in kids, and it's getting harder to control. And that's because of this bombardment from all these frequencies that are building up in our body, and that because we're not grounding or grounding out. Now, 66% of the population can download a lot of this and repair a lot of this when we sleep. But the research says 33% of us can't. But I believe at this point, from what I'm seeing in my practice and just from looking around, that it's actually much higher than that.
So you're getting this damage done to the brain. So if it's damaging the brain, it's damaging nerve cells as well.
Yep.
And then you get these damage to the gut.
Yes.
Which is medically dysbiosis, or what lay people call leaky gut. That alone is going to destroy your immune system.
That is your immune system.
Yeah. So you actually are being placed in a position of illness, death, basically.
And
you're being killed.
Right. And so they used to call it the slow kill. Now they're actually calling it literally. People are saying it's a flat out extermination program, and they're calling it the massive mind wipe, because they can actually show where it's. I mean, I know with me, I have a phenomenal memory. I've been blessed with a phenomenal memory, combined with the fact that I've done lots of neurofeedback in my lifetime, and I take lots of neurotropics. And I will tell you that when they started turning on the 4G, I have noticed short-term memory I've seen some defects there. So I'm feeling the effects of it. So I figure if I'm feeling the effects of it, what is the average person feeling? It's there. It's obviously there.
So you and I both know that we heal only when we sleep.
That's right.
So if we're sleeping with our cell phone beside our head,
Oh, no.
or our Alexa or our Google in our bedrooms, and a TV or and radio, whatever,
Oh, no.
we're never in that healing state then.
That's beyond scary. That's so, we wanted to get some of the information out, but I think the bedroom needs to be the very first place that you set up as a safety zone, so that you can get into that deep delta sleep. Because the very first thing when you come to see me, I want to brain map you and I want to see if you get into a deep delta sleep. Or I can just ask you, do you feel rested when you wake up in the morning? And do you get up to urinate? If you do one and or the other of those, I know, and I can show you then with the brain map, that you don't get into a deep delta sleep. And if you don't get into that deep delta sleep, then you're right, your body can't regenerate, it can't detox, it can't heal. So you're done before you even start. So I tell people, even shut off the electricity to your bedroom at night, and absolutely turn off the Wi-Fi at night, and truly just hardwire and have it so that you can switch on your Wi-Fi if a guest comes over for a little while, but have that shielded. There's a lot of things, pretty inexpensive things that can be done to help. But your cell phone and your Wi-Fi and the Alexa and even your key fob, people don't realize it. Your credit cards, that's all RFID. That's all pulling radio frequency to you. And not just that. Let's not just forget about the soup that we're swimming in and the damage that these frequencies do, but your privacy. I mean, you've seen it where you start mentioning something about dinosaurs, then all of a sudden there's an ad for dinosaurs 2 seconds later on your phone. I mean, that to me is a little unnerving.
Well, I actually had a conversation with somebody over coffee. A bunch of us were talking, and they were talking about credit cards that have special deals and things like that, and we were talking about credit. And 2 days later, I got something that popped up on my phone. Now, my phone was in my pocket, which is probably not a good place for my phone, but in my pocket. Wasn't using it, wasn't touching it at all. 2 days later, I get a thing, how to rebuild your credit.
That's right.
And
Sure.
And it only popped up once. And not on my phone, it popped up on my laptop.
Sure.
And I sat there and looked at that and went, that is unbelievable. Because it never was there before, never came back after, but it came 2 days after the conversation was talking about credit and how credit scores work and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that for me is, I was really fascinated because since Mom passed, I've really stepped up to helping with the marketing for the health food store that we've had over for 50 years. And the electronics people come in from the different television and radio stations that we advertise with, and they're explaining to me geolocating and how you can lasso. And I was just blown away, and it's exactly what you're talking
That's
about.
called
and
lassoing.
Everybody's doing it. And when I saw what is really happening behind the scenes, I was beyond, I'm not going to say freaked out because I don't really freak out, but I didn't like the implications of what I was looking at, to say it gently.
Well, just on the news the other day, there was talk about how Alexa listens to your conversations, right. and you can go on a website and look at everything that you talk to Alexa about and so forth. That is scary.
And your phone, even if you turn it off or put it in Wi-Fi mode, we can still take the meter and still get a feel from it. Even if you take the battery out of your phone, do you know, for your safety, just in case you get kidnapped, they can still track that phone.
Huh.
So I put mine away, and I meant to grab it, but it's right over there on top.
We'll get it at the break, and then
okay.
Then you can.
Yeah, I wanted to show you some of the different things, because for me that privacy is every bit as important.
Because I know on my phone you can't take the battery out.
Oh.
Unless you take the cover apart.
Oh.
So
what, and is it hard? You can't just slip off? See, I haven't tried to take the battery out of mine because I just use a military-grade RFID bag.
Yeah, no, I have an iPhone, and an iPhone you can't disconnect the battery from it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even if you could, it wouldn't really stop a whole lot. And that's what people don't understand is anytime you have a screen, like you were saying, the televisions, the computers, or your cell phone, that screen is two-way. It goes both ways, even if it's unplugged.
Well, I find it a little unnerving that, I have Alexa and Google in every room. And some of them have cameras on them, of course, sure. And I block those cameras out because it's just a little unnerving that there's somebody that could poke their little
they can't
computer
even with them turned off though.
Well, I have the camera off,
Do you tape it like that?
I do.
Nice.
So I mean, that's a little unnerving that somebody could eavesdrop in, you know,
Wow.
as you're stepping out of the shower because
Wow.
you have a camera
Right.
in your bathroom or
Right.
in the bedroom or whatever. So I do that, but you know, you get accustomed to having these new conveniences. I mean, I before I went into medicine, I was actually working with computers. I taught myself at home DOS, you know, on a keyboard hooked up to a television.
My dad had the first
stuff.
computer programming institute. He had one of the first in the country.
I actually remember when there were cards that were punch cards and you put it in a phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love all this stuff, and I was a quick adapter of it and
Sure.
an adopter of it.
Sure, me too.
But now, you know, it's so scary because it's easy to be sick these days, and now we're taking our electrical energy and totally destroying it.
And the problem is once you get to a certain point, it's almost like the point of no return. Because once you have reached your toxic burden and the cup it floweth over, and you've reached your body burden, and you've destroyed those single-celled epithelials of your mucosal lining, which is where all absorption and elimination happens at, how could you repair fast enough to keep up with that damage?
You can't, no matter what you eat or what your supplements
That's why I'm
taking.
out there with my bullhorn again on the roof. I mean, now more than ever, because with these satellites that are being commissioned to be put into space, and with the 4G GTE and the 5G, it's people need, and the smart meters and
Well, those smart meters are a concern, I believe.
cell phones every bit as bad. Your Alexa and your cell phone is every bit as bad. Yeah,
Wow.
your Wi-Fi is really as big of a. I consider the bigger problem because, like you said, you know, once you get used to having that convenience. But I'm going to tell you, once you hardwire and you see how much faster and better everything works, and it's really not the minimum. The amount that you're giving away in convenience is far offset by the speed and the better health that you get from hardwiring everything.
We're going to be taking a break here shortly. We come back, we're going to talk about how to protect ourselves from that. But one of the questions that's on my mind right now as you're speaking, I do that in my house, but my neighbor next door doesn't. So all of those energy waves that my neighbor is not protecting from are coming right into my door, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it becomes a problem.
Yes. How close is your neighbor is part of what you have to ask. But yeah, that's something, that's why we actually take meters and go around the house. And like I said, there are some things that you can do. So, you know, one of the first things we look at is we look at the electricity. There's things that you can put right onto your power box that can take care of the whole house. Or you can go the route. I have that, but I also have the components that go right into the sockets, so like a Graham seltzer, that, again, it smooths out all the electricity and stops all the negative fields. It just does a lot of, it'll actually end up saving you in electricity. So it'll pay for itself in no amount of time, you know, very quickly. And then, of course, making your bedroom your sanctuary, and then whatever your favorite chair or sitting area is, a sanctuary. So that while you're there, your body is at least able to get into a state where it can download and counteract some of this damage. And there's things that you can do during the day, too, that make a difference as well. So,
you know, we're going to take a quick break here, Dr. Charmaine. We'll be back at Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners with Dr. Charmaine Bassett-Trimm, and we're talking about, I think, some very important, eye-opening topic here about what all these electromagnetic and electric waves are doing to us. And then we're going to, after break, talk about what we can do to help prevent some of the damage from some of these things here. We'll be back here in a minute with Dr. Charmaine Bassett-Trimm.
thanks.
Welcome back to Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski, and we're having this wonderful, enlightening conversation here with Dr. Charmaine Bassett-Trimm. And I want to continue with this EMF talk and this low frequency and these magnetic fields that we're being harmed by, basically. But Before we do that, Dr. Charmaine, I want you to tell us where your clinic is, what you do at the clinic, and then we're going to move into how we can protect ourselves from all of these fields that we're being surrounded by.
Okay, well, we're out of Toledo, Ohio, and actually we're a Native American church first and foremost, because I really truly have been trained by so many indigenous practitioners from around the world. In fact, I was probably about 7 when I was trained by the Filipino psychic surgeons. Dad went down and studied with them for quite some time, and then he brought them up to the area to train. And I just believe that all the indigenous people I've ever studied with believes that there's no separation, slicing and dicing yourself up. That, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, that's all, one's a reflection of the other. So I believe that since we're supposed to do no harm, and this is our temple, I believe that, as a Native American church, that's kind of the philosophy, that grounding philosophy. And if you take a look at the medicine men and women of indigenous cultures, is they typically are the spiritual leaders as well. And I feel like that really does go hand in hand. And I think my journey has kind of never really veered away from that, and it's kind of come around back full circle. And I think that the Native American church really, truly puts a nice full circle approach to health and spirituality.
So legally, that gives you some abilities and some protections, if I understand it correctly.
Not really. No, because basically the way the government's set up now, they do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah, they don't even follow their own laws. So.
But you have some modalities that you can treat people with that the average.
Well, we don't treat anybody, because again, my father's philosophy was taking off the doctor's hat. I just like people to call me Charmaine, even though I have 3 different doctorate degrees, maybe even more. I don't know. I've been studying my whole life, but we train people how to become the drivers of their own ship, how to work on themselves, how to, if there's somebody in their family needs an IV, they're learning how to IV their own family member. They're learning how to take IV themselves. I mean, I learned injections. I practiced on myself. I had a German doctor, and he, at the age of 15, was teaching me how to IV and do an IM and do all those things. So I was practicing from a very early age, and then it's not such a big deal. Everybody makes such a big deal out of it, and it's really not that big of a deal. No. So that's kind of, our philosophy is way different. We don't want that whole medical, clinical doctor. We want, indigenous medicine, spiritual, the whole body, not even treating so much as learning how to take care of and manage and handle.
Educating.
Absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
Absolutely paramount.
Yeah, that's basically what this show is about, and what Healthy Pets, Healthy People radio show is about. We want to educate you. We don't treat or diagnose.
Exactly.
So, and I always say we need to be in charge. So, if I had a particular ailment, could I come and be educated by you at your clinic?
That's your responsibility. In fact, you actually sign a contract that says that you're going to come in and you're going to learn how to drive your own ship, and then whatever you learn, it's your responsibility to pass it on to the next person coming through the door that's a newbie. It's actually a contract.
My favorite saying that I say all the time, and sometimes I think it gets me in trouble, is never let a medical professional who wears a white coat and has that nice doctor thing in front of their name, me included, be in charge of your health and wellness. You have to be in charge of your health and wellness. And the only way you can be in charge is to be educated. And we use the word empowerment. And we were talking during the break about Dr. Dennis Courtney. That's a term that he used and I used independently. And when we're together talking, we're always talking about this empowerment. I think it's so important. And I think that's how you operate out of your practice.
Absolutely. And I think anybody that's practiced as long as Dr. Courtney or you or I, you have to come to that realization. When you're younger and you're like, oh, you're the healer. And then when you get older, you're like, nope, that's between the person and God. I'm just have a really huge toolbox, and I'm a great whip cracker or coach, or more like almost like health coaching. And then of course your experience and the education that you pass on, because I tell people you're going to get back whatever you put in. And I tell people, if you want to be healthy in today's world, you better spend about an hour, 2 hours a day on your health. If you truly want to be healthy, you better be doing something.
Absolutely. In my opinion, doctors should be nothing more than teachers. Now, there are practitioners that in an accident or break a leg, have a heart attack, those people have a special technique that they can use that can bring you back. But basically, doctors should be teachers, and that's really what physician means.
But I do believe that all doctors should know how to do those critical situations too, and they're really not that hard to turn around a lot of those critical situations. Usually a couple of simple things can turn most people around.
Number one, stopping the insult. So that insult with these radio waves and so forth, what if I'm driving down the street? Am I being bombarded like I am in my home especially? I can go home and unplug some things, I think. But
yeah, I think making your home your sanctuary, especially your bedroom, is a number one priority, because driving down the road, there's only a few things you can do to help yourself. And the problem driving down the road is you're in a metal vehicle and you're pulling in 3, 4, 5 cell towers.
As your phone's looking for
your phone in your car.
connection.
Now the cars are smart cars. You can't even buy, and you can't disconnect, because we looked into that. We looked into, okay, I buy a new car. I don't want the Wi-Fi, the GPS. I don't want all of that. I want to be able to use it at my leisure. You cannot.
No, my cars are all Wi-Fi connected.
Cannot disconnect it.
And they download the updates for the computer systems and so forth automatically.
Right. So problem.
What is electrical cars, what is that going to do for us?
Not any kind of worse.
Because you're really sitting on a transformer.
Yep, worse. Electrically, it's going to, again, just add to the problem. I believe that there are good solutions. There are things that we can do to ground those vehicles out, and it is something that we show people how to do. And there's devices you can wear, and there's things that you can do with antennas, and there are things to do with your vehicle. But I say first, take care of your bedroom in your house and where you work and sit mainly.
And so basically, take anything that's electrical or Wi-Fi out of your bedroom.
Yep.
All right.
Get a alarm clock that's for the visually impaired. So there's no LED, there's no readout, there's no light on it.
Because that blue light is a problem.
Yeah, because I even know people that have like green LED readouts, or they even have the old-fashioned travel clock, but it still has the arms are still lit up with that light. And you really want blackout. If you really truly want to produce enough melatonin, which is hard pressed to do with all these frequencies being read as light by the pineal gland and affecting our melatonin, serotonin cycles, you better be blacking out your room and getting rid of any light. And of course then, because we are focusing on, the electromagnetic fields and the damage that they do at nighttime when you sleep, shutting that power off.
So there's no way you're going to do a Faraday cage and be totally free of any of these fields coming in your bedroom.
Oh, you absolutely can. A lot of people have to and need to, depending on how close they are to their neighbors, depending on how close they are to towers, whether that be high-powered tension lines, the power lines, or whether it be a Wi-Fi tower, satellites. Do you live next to a police station? What about an airport? What about, do you see what I'm saying? These things are all things we must pay attention to.
So I walk around with my cell phone, and I'm not.
You've had that next to me the whole time?
Sorry.
Oh my God, you're a terrorist.
You can't get a signal down here, in the studio.
God.
So, but the thing about it is, I'm not addicted to this thing. I use it as a tool, and I like it, but it has a purpose. I'm not one of these people that sits there and does this all the time.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I can understand addiction, because I don't think it's any different to be addicted to this as it to illicit drug, to alcohol, to TV watching. I think it all is the same mechanism in the body. But I notice you have a cell phone, and I asked you when I first saw you today, do you have a cell phone? Because in our conversations, I've never asked that of you. And you said, I do. But what do you do with your cell phone?
Okay.
And I'll put it on this side.
It's okay, because I do so much to counteract it. And my clinic at Native American Church and Health Food Store, everything's hardwired. And I have my dirty electricity all managed. My electricity reads under 20
by grounding,
hertz.
By making sure the grounding is properly.
I have the gram sensors, and I have a special device onto my electrical boxes. I actually can get people's electrical readings managed to the point where they can come out of that zero range that you and I were talking about on the break and get them back up over 100. Okay, so we know that we can actually fix these fields, and that's the way my house, and that's the way the church, and that's the way the clinic, and that's the way the salon, and that's the way the spa, and that's the way the health food store is. But we can actually show that these frequencies are every bit as addictive, and they hit the same exact areas in the brain through MRIs, functional MRIs, and through EEGs. We can actually show same receptor sites as cocaine addiction and heroin addiction. In fact, we call it digital heroin and digital cocaine. It's exactly the same thing. And there's actually over in Singapore, over 200 clinics for digital addiction because it's that much of a problem. I mean, it's crazy when you go out, like let's say you're sitting in an opera, you know, and everybody's doing this on their phone or in church, or I mean,
Well,
wow.
I think the craziest thing I've seen is you're driving down the road and the car coming opposite you has somebody with their head down and the phone's sitting there between them and the steering wheel, and that's got to be the craziest. You've got a killing machine, and you're texting or looking at your phone as you're driving. And I'm not going to say I'm not like somewhat guilty every once in a while of that, but it's certainly, I would never be doing that.
No,
you know?
Heck no.
And you know, my car, interestingly enough, if I get a text, it shows up on the center screen. You know,
That's a better way to do it. I hardwire mine if I'm on the road, but when you ask me, I keep mine in a military-grade RFID bag.
So an RFID bag is preventing those waves from...
Not all of them. You have to know what like was with anything, buyer beware. But, you know, I want something that blocks the extremely low frequencies, the radio frequencies, military grade. So if we get an EMP, it's not going to really handle an EMP because you would have to be grounded out for that. But I use my cell phone at my convenience. I look at it every only 2 or 3 days. But when I travel away down the road, I need that to be able to communicate if I need to, which again, I use it as little as humanly possible. So people are like, you know, I send you emails all the time. I think the problem is everybody thinks that they should be that accessible. But when you put yourself in the situation where you're that accessible, where people expect you to answer an email because they send it to you or a text or call you, then, I mean, I already only sleep. I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning and I went to bed at...
Me too.
What did I go to bed? I got 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not. But you know, when you're doing a road trip, I'm very good about making sure I get into a deep sleep.
Yeah.
They call me bear, and that's a grizzly bear if you wake me up too soon, and a slumber bear or a hibernating bear because I really believe in my sleep. But point being is that the cell phone, if you keep it on your person besides the electrical fields, it's actually like being in the starting blocks with the gun up in the air, ready, set. But you never fire the gun. So the adrenaline and the stress hormones that you're kicking out because you're that accessible, people need to look at it as, you know what, even as a professional, like I do a lot of hands-on practicing. So as a professional, I can only get to the phone, you know, twice a day where I can return calls, where I check my messages. Any more than that's
I will
unhealthy.
attest to that.
Any more than that's unhealthy.
Yeah, and I would agree. So I used to keep my cell phone in my left front pocket.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, well, I actually started to feel little twitches when my phone wasn't in my pocket. And I'm like, what? I thought my phone was ringing, you know, on vibrate and ringing. It was my leg. So I stopped that. And those twitches went away after a little bit of time. And I've heard other people say that they feel like we're, you know, little, I don't know if it's their nerves, their blood vessels, their muscles. I don't know what it is.
I'm not really going to get into what that is. You got to come to my lecture tonight for that because that's a whole other can of worms that we are just not going to get into right now.
We're unable to promote the lecture tonight as we did on the radio show because this is going to air after your lecture. But you can mention, if you would, what you did do here tonight for the Freedom.
Oh, that's what we're talking about. It's going to be based on the radio for, you know, the electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
And the damage.
And that was that's a Freedom of the Choice group that
Sophia.
Sylvia's
awesome.
Yeah. So, and I have lectured there a few times.
Landing.
Yeah. So it's a good group of people that want to take charge of their own health, and they bring in speakers as often as they can to educate themselves. So you do that. What are you wearing? I see these bands around your wrists and your ankles.
That's kind of why I pushed up my homemade gizmos, gadgets, whatnot. So opposing magnets. And what that does is that's kind of like my Wonder Woman bracelets.
So
I'm Wonder Woman. So it kind of creates a field.
So you have a negative on one and a positive on the other?
Yep. So I do the alternating. And I also have them in my bottom of my shoes.
So is that like an invisible force field?
Yeah, it does. It actually helps counteract the field, so I get less. And then, you know, I have my hematite rings on my middle fingers, my neutral fingers.
And what do they do?
Well, just again, kind of help, because what I've noticed is with this, now I've got the magnets on my feet, but I noticed that everything from here up is where I really feel everything, you know, from using the devices. And
again, an early adopter, you know,
is that a Tesla watch?
Well, it's an Apple Watch.
Oh,
So
no.
so like, I'm all Apple. I always liked Apple products.
My husband too.
So this is, I think, my second version of my Apple Watch. But I have to be honest with you. Sometimes I can't wear this.
I know.
And I start to feel, and I'm not going to call it pain, I'm going to call it discomfort right where my watch is. And these are some key points here.
In Chinese medicine, those are the key
Yeah,
points.
so I find myself wearing it less and less and less. And I actually wore it today, not because I needed it. I wore it today so I could point this out, that there is a field being generated from this. I mean, you can get your heartbeat with this, and you can get your EKG with this.
Oh yeah, the
or
technology is
ECG.
awesome, but can't you keep that on? Can't you keep that off and then just upload it like in the evening or something to that effect? Don't you? It doesn't have that capability, because I tell people some people's jobs require them. I have some patients whose jobs require them to wear those, but what they do is they keep it turned off so it still can get the pedometer.
Yeah.
And then they can just go online and download it like at night.
I think you can do that. I just find myself just not wearing it as often as I used to.
Yeah, I wouldn't wear it at all.
Yeah. No, I've felt that from time to
yeah.
time. In fact, more often than not, after I've had it on for a while.
You're making the antenna that you already are, you're amplifying it probably about 10,000, 100,000 times.
Yeah. So best thing to do is avoid it. Okay. Wear magnets. Mm-hmm. Now, what else can we do?
This is one of the few devices that I found. I mean, there's all kinds of devices out there, and they all work to some level. There is not one simple step solution to helping us with where we're at right now. But what I like about this one is this absorbs all the electromagnetic frequency and actually turns it into far infrared.
What's it called?
This is going to be the Cell Shield.
And where would I get something like that?
Well, I mean, I carry them.
In your store?
I carry them, yep. And you can get almost anything online these days, but that's going to be on every device that I have, on my person.
So that limits the field being...
It absorbs it all, and then it turns it into far infrared. It converts it. So pretty cool technology.
Yeah,
I also have been a big fan of Tachyon for a long time. I've been using Tachyon since it came out in the late 70s.
Okay.
Tachyon Energy.
Are those the little things that we put on the back of our cell phone sometimes in the past?
That's what these are.
That's what
this
that is.
This is the 5-time size. This
okay.
This is the one I advocate. There are a lot out there. This is the one that I feel is doing the best job of the ones that I've researched. This right here is a Tachyon disc that's on my computer. I have these throughout my house. I have them next to my bed. Tachyon is basically, it's plasma energy, and that works as an amplifier or director of tachyon or plasma energy.
So are these on your website?
No. Mom was never a big, Mom had a one-page website, so I'm developing my website. Since Mom passed, I am getting everything.
What about the information of them?
I'm getting that.
That part too.
I'm not up to speed by any means.
All right.
We've been in business for over 50 years. But that's just something that, we never really, we were one of the first people to do mail order. And we've always had computers because, like I said, Dad was one of the first, he had a computer programming institute in Memphis, Tennessee back, I was 6, so 55 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that industry, the supplement industry, certainly is in flux, and you guys were ahead of your time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No question about it. So we can ground these little individual items that we have, computers, our cell phone, ourselves even. How do we protect ourselves in our house?
Number one thing is you want to reduce use. You want to increase distance. And you want to always hard line wherever possible. And then there actually is, I like the company Earthing. They've been around for 20 years, even though we've been grounding and teach people how to ground since, as long as we've been in this field. So 50 plus years, over 50 years. But Earthing does a really great job. I do and have carried their products since they started, where you can actually ground out your car. You can ground out your bed. You can ground out, like normally this sits on top of a grounding mat. Normally it's underneath my feet wherever I sit and work. This would be hard lined. This has a disc on it. This has the tacky on it. There's so many wonderful things to do. There's shielding paints.
And that's something new.
Not really.
No?
Not really. Just there's a lot more companies doing it now.
Okay.
But again, buyer beware. You need to know what you're getting there. There's EMF nets, canopies that can go over your bed, which are really, really great because, again, making that bedroom your sanctuary so you can heal when you sleep, and then you'll be able to handle some of the insult that happens during the day with just using a couple little things here and there.
Because I mentioned the Faraday cage earlier. The Faraday prevents all of these rays from coming in, all of these fields from coming in.
Right, and again, how you design your Faraday cage, that's one of the things I'm going to also be discussing tonight because, not all the products and all the shields and all the wires and not all of them do as promised. So again, you need to know what you're using. But yes, making a Faraday cage out of your bedroom, as long as you're grounding it out, that's the other big mistake I see, is a lot of people will make their bedroom a Faraday cage or even put their bed in a Faraday cage and they forget to go underneath and they forget to ground out. So those are the two biggest mistakes I make. But yeah, building a Faraday cage for your bed is a fantastic idea. Just don't take your cell phone or your pad in there with you, right? Because then you're going to bounce that all around and amplify it.
Yeah.
So
what if I'm on my cell phone and I have Bluetooth headsets on? What is that doing to me?
Frying your brain.
Frying my brain. That explains a lot of things.
Get a hollow tube headset.
A hollow tube. So a hollow tube is not even one with electricity wires hooked up.
Right. So we have these on the phone. Then you have your shielding pouch, which hangs on your body with the shield on this side, and then you have your hollow tube headset. But again, you're at home and at work, your phones should be hardlined. They should be landlines. And you should only use your phone whenever necessary. But if you're going to use it, that's how you should use it. It should have one of these on it. It should be in a shielding pouch with the shield against your body, and you should have the hollow tube headsets. Now you're going to be in pretty good shape.
So I have a landline in my house.
Yay.
All right. But
with Alexa.
Well, interesting enough, though, the landline works off the Wi-Fi. You can't get a landline anymore.
Sure you can.
They're all Wi-Fi through internet service providers now.
No, all my phones are at home and at work.
I don't think in this area that works that way anymore. They're all Wi-Fi connected landlines.
Voice over internet?
Yeah.
Well, you can do that. Just make sure your internet's hardwired, and then you should be okay. Because that's one of the things that I recommend if you are in that situation where you're doing the voice over internet. That's not such a bad idea as long as you're hardwired. Your computer's hardwired.
Okay, so the phone plugs into the wall, and then I think the VoIP is plugged into the Wi-Fi router.
Right, so that's hardwired.
That's hardwired.
But here's the thing: is a lot of people they're hardwired into the router, but then they still have the Wi-Fi on. You got to disable the Wi-Fi. That's what I do. Like, this doesn't have Wi-Fi on right now. I do not turn the Wi-Fi on my computer.
Wow.
That's the way that you do that, because then the speed, oh my God, the speed increase. You're gonna be so happy. You're gonna be like, why didn't I do this sooner? It's amazing, the difference.
Yeah, I think everybody loves the Wi-Fi stuff because you could sit on your sofa, you could sit at your desk.
You can still do that. You can still do that.
But you're always tethered to a wire.
Yeah, you get a long one and it goes a few feet. Big deal.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. And if you absolutely are going to be in a situation where you're going to have your laptop, I have a shielding blanket, I have a shielding pad, and then I have this one on me and one on my computer. And now you're going to knock back probably about 75% of that. If you absolutely are going to sit outside, it's a beautiful day, and you're going to work on your computer, you're going to do it for a few hours, you can knock back, 75, 85, 90% of that if it's done the right way. So there's going to be situations, when you're traveling, there's going to be times when you are going to use your technology and it's not hardwired. Okay, shield it, absorb it, convert it.
So what you're basically saying is there's no way we're going to avoid this, but we have to reduce the amount that we're exposed to.
No, I want to believe that we're going to actually avoid it. I want to believe that enough of us are going to have a voice, which is why we need to be out there educating. And thank you for having me so much on your show so we can get this education out there, because that's paramount. That's the first step. But there's all types of advocacy groups out there. And that's so critical, because the point is these frequencies could actually be healing us. They don't have to be hurting us. And that's the thing with the 5G. They could actually run optic lines to the house. And the only reason why they don't is because that would put their company in the jurisdiction of city, municipalities, and local governments, as opposed to right now a branch of the government that's unregulated, so they can get away with this murder. Yeah. Okay, because there's things that we could do that we could demand that would take away the damage that they're doing. So it's just ludicrous that we don't know enough about it to say, hey, nope, we're not going to buy your product. Because the way they're allowed to get away with this stuff is because we buy it.
We accept it.
We buy it and we use it, so it gives them permission.
Yeah. So, how many people are actually speaking up besides yourself?
Oh, so many more than there used to be. I used to be the Lone Ranger.
You were.
Me and, back in the 70s and 80s, I was the Lone Ranger. Me and my friend from Motorola, but a lot more people are really getting it now. The research out there. I could not believe when I actually sat down to do this PowerPoint this time, which I put about 1,000 hours into. I was like, wow, amazing the amount of research and clinical and university data that's out there. A lot of it, like I said, started in Europe because they were 10 years ahead of us with this stuff. And I remember when they first started applying the 4G over in Europe, and I was watching some of the videos of people and the complaints and the illnesses that they were experiencing. It was breaking my heart, and there was no escaping it. And then they started coming up with, it's kind of cool. There was these kids and these families that were making a point so they did not leave their house without these tents over them that you could see through to block the radiation.
So it won't do any good to take some aluminum foil and make a hat, huh?
Oh, it absolutely will work. But again, are you grounding it out?
Yeah.
Are you getting your whole body? There's very specific ways that we want to do these things, or we can actually be making the problem much worse.
We're out of time now. I want you to tell everybody again how they can get a hold of you and where you're located.
Okay, so Onacak, that's ANYANAKAI @gmail.com, Onacak, and that's 419-720-2972. 419-720-2972, or Bassett's Health Foods in Toledo, Ohio.
So we're going to ask you back on the show in the future because you have so many topics you can talk about as far as health and wellness goes. It's just not all these radio waves and electronic fields and magnetic fields that we're being exposed to. So I thank you so much, Dr. Charmaine Bassett-Trimm, for coming on. It's been my pleasure. You will be on my radio show again in the future, hopefully, and I'll try to let the audience know when that's coming up. Thank you so much for watching Healthy Pets, Healthy Owners. Remember, a healthy pet is a happy pet. When you're healthy, you're happy as well.